6 o'clock on the nose, so we'll go ahead and officially bring our meeting to order. At this time, Ms. City Clerk, roll to the City Council, please.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, you have all present except for Councilman Mahee for the public hearing.
Okay. In this case, at this time, we will actually open the public hearing, and so.
Now, first of all, we'll have a public hearing on the fiscal year 2023-2024 millage rate.
Okay. I wasn't gonna.
Want him to speak before.
Well, I'm saying I'm openly. You said I don't have to take a vote.
I was asking, would you like for him to speak?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll let him speak to it
for
first.
the public to speak.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Citizens of Fairburn. Okay. So what is the millage rate and why is it important? The millage rate is the tax rate used to calculate local property taxes. When multiplied against the assessed value of a taxable property, it calculates the amount of the property tax to be paid. It represents per every $1,000, it represents the amount per every $1,000 of a property's assessed value. Example, a millage rate of 8 mills is $8 per $1,000 of assessed value. The city must set a millage rate that provides sufficient revenue to support the maintenance and operations of the city for the new fiscal year. How are taxes assessed? Well, in Georgia, property is required to be assessed at 40% of the fair market value. Property is assessed at the county level by the Board of Tax Assessors. The State Revenue Commissioner is responsible for examining the digest of counties in Georgia in order to determine the property is assessed uniformly and equally between and within all counties. Property owners that do not agree with their assessed value on their proposed assessment may file an appeal to the County Board of Equalization hearing officer or arbitration. What is a rollback rate? Each year, the Fulton County Board of Tax Assessors is required to review the assessed value of taxable property in the county for taxing purposes. When the trend of prices on the properties that have recently sold in the county indicates there has been an increase in fair market value of any specific property, the Board of Tax Assessors is required by law to reevaluate the value of such property and adjust the assessment. When the total digest of the taxable property is prepared, Georgia law requires that a rollback millage rate be computed that will produce the same total revenue on the current year's digest that last year's millage rate produced. If the city does not take the rollback rate, this must be advertised as a tax increase even if the city does not increase their tax rate. So I put one example here of the current millage versus the rollback millage. So on the left side, you see the current millage on a $200,000 property. Your taxable rate is 40%, so your assessed value is $80,000. With the current millage, which is 9.56, your current city properties would be $764. On the right, with the rollback rate, again, you can see it's $200,000 property. The assessed taxable rate is 40%, so your assessed value is $80,000. So if you come down to the bottom, you'll see the rollback millage is 8.79, so the city property taxes would be $703.20. So this year, we are proposing to keep the millage rate the same as the previous year. On a property such as the example I gave, this would be an increase of about $60 per year on that particular property. Again, the staff is recommending to the council that we keep our millage rate the same, which is 8.10 mills for our maintenance and operation and 1.46 mills for our bond indebtedness. This concludes the millage presentation.
Thank you, sir. So at this time, by members of council, I'm not required to ask a motion. So in this case, I'm just going to open the public hearing. At this time, is there anyone Yes, sir. Yeah. Mike, sir.
Just for the middle.
Miller. Item.
I don't have a question with the millage rate. I have a question with the,
Okay, that's not, it can't be covered.
You ask them to state their name and
Oh,
address
I'm sorry.
for me.
Go ahead, mister,
So
for
I
the
know.
record. State your name and, state your
Go
name
ahead.
for the record.
And address.
okay.
Your home and address. Your name and a record, your name for the record.
Oh, Ron Alderman.
Okay. And your address?
I live at 91 Poplar Street in Fairburn. Been there since 1968.
Gotcha.
Same house,
Gotcha.
same family.
Wow.
And Mr. City Attorney, I'm just trying to make sure from parliamentary purposes, this is supposed to be for the millage rate. Are we authorized to address questions outside of the millage rate for that? Oh, okay, go ahead, sir, it's authorized, go ahead.
The document that was given to me in my neighborhood says that the city of Fairburn has tentatively adopted a millage rate which will require an increase in property taxes by 9%. In reading that document, it makes everybody think, and the people that have contacted me and called me have said they're going up on the millage rate. Well, I called Miss Brenda today and talked to Ms. James, because I was on city council 14 years and she was one of my favorite people. So if I ever need to talk to anybody about something, she's the one I call. So anyway, she put me straight about the millage rate. She said, we're not going up on the millage rate, but we're also not having a rollback. Well, I'm born in 1942. I'm 81 years old. And so I'm in, actually, and she told me we get a 10,000 exemptions, and I called back, and senior adults get a 10,000. So if you multiply the assessment on my property, multiply it by 40% and take $10,000 off of that, probably of the increase. I got the assessment back county, and that they sent in my tax bill that basically says the state, Fulton County, well actually the state is what they call a homeowner by the governor and the General Assembly of the state of Georgia, and I got a credit tax in the county because that was the state of Georgia. Why not? But another lady I saw outside said she got the same thing on her Fulton County tax bill, that the governor and the homeowner. And so, but what I'm going to, I understand about all the 10,000, and let me say very much a 10,000 off. Every nickel. And insurance to have $1,000 work done, and start buying out of sight. My grandson, 50,000 truck. I think so. I think here to ask if members consider but when the assessment goes up, the 10,000, there has to be everything's going up. The only thing $1,000. If you could go that $10,000 exemption, but on been getting it a couple of years ago, and the assessments and the exemption at Fulton County awful lot on the full, so I'm hoping can write off more because it's gone up, and that's what it's based on. So thank you for listening to me. I appreciate it.
And we still have the public hearing. Go ahead, sir.
Roland Dix, Fairburn, Georgia. Concern, are our homes going to be assessed by the starting at $5,000, or will we go to what we bought the homes for, or have our homes over 20 raising the assessments?
You want to answer that, Mr. City Manager?
So thank you for your question. The assessments are all done at the county level. So there's the County Board of Tax Assessors, and so they're wholly separate from the city, and they have the sole responsibility for assessing every individual property in the county. To my knowledge, there are several factors that go into that. Your home, its assets, how much land you're on, any improvements you've made to your home. They do look at the area market, but I don't think that's the sole determination. It's supposed to be based on your individual property and what the value of your property is in the current market. So I'm not an expert, so let me please qualify that. But if you contact the Fulton County Board of Tax Assessors, they should have staff that can walk you through exactly what they consider when,
Excuse me, go ahead.
when assessing your individual property. There's also, and I don't know what the timeline is currently, an opportunity for you to appeal that assessment. So if for some reason you feel the assessment they put on my property doesn't seem quite accurate, it's too much or it's too low, whatever you may think, you can appeal to the Board of Tax Assessors to say, I'd like to have this reconsidered. So there is a process for that as well. That information is typically on the Fulton County Board of Tax Assessors, the Fulton County government website, but I'll give you my card before we finish this evening. I'll be happy to have information for you.
Anyone else for the public hearing want to have a comment? Yes, ma'am, come on up.
Okay, Melinton Barron, 104 Woodway. So I was looking at the chart, the difference that you had up there between the rollback versus permit. So what was the difference? I mean, is there a real big difference? Because I'm thinking it was like a 9%. Yeah.
$60 per month on that particular property is $200,000 value.
Okay. So it's really not a 9% increase.
9% of our overall taxes.
Okay, you mean the property or the?
All the property numbers.
Okay, I just want to understand that difference. You know, 9%, I'm thinking 9%, that's a high amount. So now that you breaking it down like that and seeing the difference per year, it's $61. And so is that just for Fairburn?
That's just an example that I created, just giving a $200,000 house.
Okay.
But every city in the whole state of Georgia, they don't take the rollback rate, and they have to advertise it as a property tax increase.
Okay, so what are we voting on? Rollback versus the other?
That's what they were adopting.
So, ma'am, is if you took every property in the city of Fairburn, by not taking the rollback, because people's property values were assessed higher, it equates to a 9% increase overall. Not on individual properties, but the entire tax just for the city goes up by 9%. And that's, again, not, nobody up here voted to raise your millage rate. It's because when I was talking earlier about the Board of Tax Assessors looking at your property,
Fulton County.
yes, ma'am, they are evaluating that properties are worth more. So the more your property is worth,
Right.
it increases your tax bill. So that's essentially where that 9% comes from, is from the increased value of all of those
And
properties.
just about everybody property increase.
Yes, ma'am, you're correct. All right. You're the value of your property. So when it increases, there is some increase to the tax bill.
Okay, so that increase, so the rollback would be a little less.
Yes, ma'am. And so what the rollback would do is to try to wipe away the increase that that higher value created.
Okay, so what would be the benefit? Would that be the benefit for the city?
It would reduce the have to operate officer, hire the city provides. Reduces the amount, and we would have a court to reduce, to match that reduction. So nobody, the mill, same, but
You know, whatnot. I probably,
no, it's a budget.
yeah.
And so, and we're gonna keep the millage rate and try to operate the department at the same level we've been on, right? If you took a rollback, it would reduce the amount of the budget, and therefore you'd have to make cuts. We don't know where those cuts would be, but it's in all the operating departments, code enforcement, police,
Police.
fire departments. That's how police officers may be.
Okay.
Thank you. Discussion. Kennedy, I live at 1 in Fairburn. I love years and there to have is to pay. For services. We want to keep. I'm going to put on a different hat because to staff to begin really focusing on the development that to Fairburn, particularly that will some of those pay. If we dusted off all of those initiatives and plans that we have and begin to put them in place. Every day I ride, and I live downtown, every day I ride through town, and it's dying. It has been dying a slow death since I've and it has so much potential. Your statement, situated to succeed, it is perfectly succeed, but we have to start somewhere, and we have to do it comprehensively. We can't do it development to look at one at once. We've got to start looking at cleanup. You ride down the street now, you'll see Food Depot and when places have been homes of people out there and stay out there all day. Developers are coming down and potential business owners are coming into our city and seeing that. And they're turning around, and don't think that they're not, because they are. They're turning around because that's what we attract. We have buildings and developments that are falling in, and they need to be torn down. There's nothing to say that you need to hold on to old stuff. Some things need to be torn down and have some historic buildings. If they're out of character, then, or if they're declined so much, then they need to be torn down. And then, when we talk about residential, we need to make sure that we are providing places for our young people to remain here if they want to stay here. I saw Councilmember Whitmore recently with a student who is at Tuskegee, and she's about to finish in 3 years, and she's coming back home. But she wants to live around here, but there's no place to live. Our young people don't want to live like we live. in single-family homes. And again, we're situated to succeed, and it would be nice to have some developments in the downtown area where young people could live, to have a car. MARTA comes right through here looking for. So I want us to start thinking comprehensively about our development and how we begin to look at ourselves and look at what we can accomplish. And I'm speaking primarily for the downtown area because it has so much potential. It has so much potential. And if you are looking to see some places that have been like Fairburn, Haverhill is starting to do a little bit. One Saturday when you don't have anything else to do, ride up to Duluth, up to downtown Duluth. It used to be just like Fairburn. And look at what they have done in their downtown area now. And so we thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mayor, if I may?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you for that really insightful comment, and it's got a lot of depth to it. I just wanted to highlight a couple of things that everyone may not be aware of. So beginning 18 months ago when this administration came in, one of the very first things this council recognized was everything you just mentioned. And shortly after this administration started, that spring we had a retreat, and we spent 2 days really how we're going to be situated to succeed. Focus was on downtown. So a couple of things that we have done. One, we have a initiative, LCI, Downtown Master, in conjunction with the Aerotropolis, that envisions the revitalization of all of downtown. It identifies, it's on our website, it identifies what we call 3 catalytic sites that are primed for development. 1, 2 of which the city has significant acreage property that we own. One of those sites, we've already issued a request for proposals where we've sought developers to come in and propose some mixed-use development. That RFP closed on Fridays. We've got several responses that are currently being reviewed. In addition to this, the council also approved a small business that will have up to $2,000 per 350. We've also about this issues that you have to know on radar. Specific location being paid attention to. Administrator came to the city of development and we're putting in place. So it's an active as well. To do a that downtown master to the alley, build in the theater, art display. Fairburn Antique. Those types of things. You were very acutely focused. We understand downtown. That's what development initiatives go in place. We have more interaction than we had before. Folks are asking questions. We don't have a deal locked in. Absolutely confident. Differences.
Is there any rate? Members of council be last. So that. Actually, coincidentally, Ms. Kennedy, actually coincidentally, the city manager known to me summed up everything I was going to actually say to you regarding our downtown. You're familiar in this case with the work I do. One of the things I was very proud of, our new purchasing manager as well as the staff in this case mentioned for a lot of those of you that didn't probably understand the lingo, the request for proposal was actually put out on the street and it closed Friday. Coincidentally, I just happened to have been up here Friday right before it closed, and I asked about the number versus the number of people that we actually advertise. We advertise way outside of our city. One of the things that this government administration has gone beyond the call of duty. As you mentioned, as Assistant City Manager Friday, we brought developers here. One of the things that we recognize in this government, I want to commend the with we would take our downtown area a lot. What would it bring? Situation created where actually restaurants look at us, and one of the things, one of your great points was rooftops. That's an issue that's going to come up probably at our next council. And we've decided we put people in here is between our development authority, our economic consultant, and Miss Sylvia Abernathy. They are literally talking about now, city manager. How many business openings we done had this year in the last 2
We've
years?
had 40 businesses in.
40 as
Not enough businesses are coming. In fact, I invite you on the corner of
Hamilton.
West Campbellton.
right at the corner.
Law space that's right there. Fairburn Antique Mall, the ribbon cutting is October 2nd, 5 to 7 p.m. And so businesses are coming. And yeah, and Domino's.
Yes, well, and we've got the council is having to come up with a plan. We've got a plan as it relates to address. I'll just say it publicly. We've talked to the one owner that owns a lot of property in our downtown, and we're realizing we may have to take legislative methods to actually address that, because in this case, the lots are vacant, and we've had, I know, 4 meetings over 18 months as it relates to what is your plans. Not only that, and not only are we asking what is his plan, we've actually brought services to this owner and said, we will help you with the real estate part of it. We'll help you with they'll show you that type of services. A lot of the other governments, and I can say this boldly, a lot of the other governments do not have that type of output and do not have the legislative support for us to use the kind of money. You heard him mention in this case about the small business that's another avenue. As much as proud as we were about helping a lot of our residents with the utility assistance bill, in this case, we're talking about helping business owners that are actually already up and running, but want to actually qualify, in this case, to do something about the outlook of the downtown area. And so and I'm going to give it to you I'm going to say it about as nice as I can. As you may see, a lot of the paving, street repairs, all the different things that's happening in different neighborhoods. And let me say this as I close on that. One of the things that we had to and members of council, I want to, again, publicly thank them for their support of what we've been doing. You're seeing things happening in 4 corners. I talked to an HOA last week over on Plantation Road. One of the things I explained to them, we had to start in all 4 corners of the city, and we're working our way inward. Why are we doing it that way? Because what we didn't want is that one segment of our city saying, why is all the work being done in this area versus this? And so we're working our way from 4 corners coming in. And so you may see streets being paved from Plantation Road to Village Green to Ashbury Park. I mean, all the different areas, and we're coming. And so we're coming up as a council at our retreats. We talk about what are the things that we need to do in our efforts to attract businesses. And so that conversation he just gave you, this was an intense, how many hours? 16 hours, but over 2 days,
yes,
that the city council went through intense conversations about what do we want to come to agreement and do. So I just want to make sure that's not something we talk about publicly on a regular basis, but since you're here asking about it, I just want you to know that these concerns that you just brought, every single one of them has actually been talked about. And then one of the other things we talked about as it relates to the millage rate, we were talking about how do we make sure, I believe it was actually Ms. Davis that actually sponsored what's that, homestead exemption?
Homestead exemption.
Homestead exemption, and they've been trying to get it passed for, I guess, several years. And every member of your council signed off on it and said, let's make it happen. So I say that again, and ladies and gentlemen, you may hear a lot of things. It's political season, okay? Let's keep it real, okay? It's election season. You may hear all the different things that's happening, but here's the part I want you to make sure, and I can say this proudly. There are more mayors talking about the city of Fairburn right now than you believe. I know, because they're coming here asking me, how in the world did you buy 3 fire trucks? How in the world did you buy brand new police cars? How in the world are you guys having these events, public events? Your city government, in this case, is actually pouring the money into the residents. We've had a lot of them come to our events as it relates to our Third Friday. Two mayors and asked me point blank, what are y'all doing? How are you paying for all that? The money, I said, well, we're using our money in either services or entertainment for our residents. So I say that again because at the end of the day, unfortunately, in the middle of a campaign season, all that kind of stuff gets lost, and that's a sad commentary, but I'm here to say today that your government has represented you well in the last 20 months, and so, and if it's God's will, we'll represent you better this time next year. So, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get deep.
Just real quick, the vagrancy effort is really two.
Yeah, I think, go ahead, sir. Go ahead, finish, and then I'll come to her.
The vagrancy effort is really two-pronged. We're looking at our ordinance to make sure that it is correctly positioned for us to be able to address that issue. But we've also started a conversation, which actually started some time ago with Fulton County, to make sure that we have resources for those who have need. So it's both enforcement and connecting people to resources when that is the situation. And so we want to be balanced in that approach, and we're pursuing that in both ends. In the upcoming budget that will hopefully be approved tonight, in the FY24 budget, we've added funding for blight abatement. So that allows us, when property owners either fail to or are unable to bring those blighted properties into compliance, we've got funding set aside so that with a court order, the city can go in and address those blighted properties. And lastly, we've invested significantly into enhancing our code enforcement effort. It needed some help when we first got here. We've added personnel, we've added budget, we've added resources, we've added a new system that they work in. They're processed, I believe, in the last 30 days, 400 cases. And so it's all an ongoing effort, and you have to be diligent, you have to be consistent, but we're convinced that we've got the right efforts in place that will produce results.
Ms. Jones, you had a question?
Yes, so I was going to address the code enforcement issue as well. Unfortunately, the city of Fairburn lost a large number of personnel in code enforcement. And it really had a severe impact on the city, on the way the city looked, on us being able to address various issues. And we had to put money in that in order to get the quality of personnel that we needed to do the work. And Mr. Phillips talked about the systems that we needed and the training that is ongoing training, quite frankly, that is needed because code enforcement has really become somewhat challenging, and our staff needs to be constantly trained up on the codes, and we're under review of our codes to make sure that they are still relevant and they meet the needs of this growing and thriving city. And then secondly, I want to say that we also put dollars in so that we could develop a parks master plan. One park, Duncan Park, needs investment as well. Able to put some money in Cora Roberts, but there are additional dollars that need to be there as well. But then we've got these other parts of the city that have no green space, no parks, no nothing. And that's a disservice to those residents. So we've had to invest in that. And then lastly, technology, which is one of the most expensive things that, you know, you have to spend dollars on. But we are in the 21st century, and we absolutely have to invest in technology, if for no other reason for cybersecurity, which it has become a huge factor. And if you guys recall, when the mayor took office, in part of his inaugural address, he had to deal with, on the day before, a cyber attack that we had, and that cost the city a great deal of money. And so these are investments that I say have been, the can has been kicked down the road, but now we can no longer afford not to do it. And that's why we've established the budget that we have, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And that's why staff has proposed that we maintain the same millage rate that we have. And then don't forget the new fire station that's coming on board over on Milan Road. Another huge investment, absolutely required if the city of Fairburn is to maintain its #1 ISO rating, which affects all of our homeowners insurance. If our rating as a city becomes less than that, we will pay more for homeowners insurance. So we have to make the investment in that as well. So there are a long list of things, but I wanted to just re-emphasize those. That unfortunately, we've just now come to the point where we can no longer not do certain things. We just can't afford not to do it.
Ms. Davis?
Thank you.
Ms. Davis, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. There's another section that you may not see that is critical to doing the external things, and that's our staff. 18 months ago, we did not have a full staff. Morale was the lowest of the low. When we as council had approved an increase in pay, it was not given to all our staff. We had people, we had departments that weren't fully staffed. So with that foundation, if you don't have your foundation intact, then you cannot do the external things. We didn't have a city administrator. We may have had 4 within 2 or 3 years.
Which is expensive.
We now have a city administrator who is qualified. We have an assistant administrator who is extremely qualified. So we can't do all these external things unless we have our internal things together. And I sit here tonight and say I am most proud of the city of Fairburn than I have ever been, and I'm a 28-year resident and a 5-year council member. So this administration has done a lot of things that you may not see. You know, it's coming on board, but the critical things that we need are the people that provide the services, and that's here on a day-to-day operating, and I'm so proud of what they have accomplished in these 18 months. Thank you, Mayor.
I just want to add, so you guys recall the Christmas Day disaster or Christmas week disaster we had relative to water. Infrastructure is a whole nother conversation, and which is going to require some serious investment by the city. And it will be required even more as these housing developments come in, because now we have more and more people who need to use more and more water, more sewer, et cetera, et cetera. So that's another major investment that we're having to make as well.
And I'm going to close with these 2 areas as a follow-up. And again, I didn't know Ms. Jones bringing up the situation back in December with the water crisis that was in the state. That was not a Fairburn issue. That was a state of Georgia issue. The city of Fairburn was the only government, let me say that publicly, the only government giving us 6-hour updates on our websites and to our staff. Am I right or wrong, members of council? And so we were only one to the point that some of the other council members in other cities said, don't worry, you're calling us, look at what just read Fairburn's website. I know because 2 of them told me. And so what happened, but here's the part that gets lost in all that. You heard Ms. Jones talk about the staff. Let me tell you what most people didn't know. That was December the 27th, I believe it was. Your 26th to 7th, 26th through the 30th. I know because me and all the staff was here. While everybody else was on vacation, we were actually here trying to figure out how we were having meetings with the city of Atlanta. And so again, the part.
Passing out water?
Passing out water. So again, when it's so easy to talk about what, you know, we could find 100 things that we need to do better. We're actually, we come together every year in a retreat to talk about those very things. But the part that please don't lose sight of where we've come from the last 20 months. And that's your government. Let me say that, your government is the reason, your legislators is the reason a lot of success that we're having. is so easily forget what used to be. In this case, ladies and gentlemen, I took over with an IT attack, and I'm not gonna call it IT attack. It was actually an effort to destroy our IT department internally. And I'm gonna leave it, I'm gonna stop right there, okay? But I couldn't use that as an excuse. We had to open up for business the next day, so we had to bring in people that could actually help us actually put our government back in place so that we could actually account for a lot of information. And along those lines, as it relates to IT, a lot of the information, a lot of the issues that you see, Ms. Jones at a great point, a lot of the issue you see us bringing up now, and we will at least for the next 12 months, is because I refused, as the mayor, I said, until we can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt any issue that deals with billing, any issue that deals with taxes, any issues that deal with utility, I said, until we can prove that we have recovered all the information so that we don't turn around and have residents saying, you're asking me basically to pay twice something that I got billed for a year ago. But it took us almost a year to recoup all that information. That's overlooked by a lot of people, but ladies and gentlemen, again, the council publicly that basically gave us the green light and the funding to pick type of investment, which was not cheap. When it's all said and done, ladies and gentlemen, we laugh with each other up here. And behind the scenes, we have some real come to Jesus conversations at our that are not so helps to make sure that all of us on one we want to do, and then we have the staff to come. So with that being said, we have now 15 minutes left. Did you have any other thing, Mr. City Finance? Mm-hmm. Okay, with that being said, I'll
Close the public hearing.
yeah. And I will now officially close the public hearing. Okay. So with that being said, members of council, I don't have to ask for an adjournment. So in this case, I'll make a motion to adjourn the workshop. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries. So in this case, ladies and gentlemen, we'll start our council meeting at 7 o'clock sharp. I think that clock is a couple of minutes.